System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. I am Amin TMK alongside Emoja Lil Tanky Sumler. Today is Tuesday, June 17th. Moja, my friend, hello. Happy Tuesday to you. How are you?
Man, it's just for all them people to be like, oh, y'all just be on some doom shit. Well,
Alarmists, they say.
Vindicated?
No, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be.
I mean, we're the only channel that said that there would be an attack on Iran.
I don't want to be like that because, were we right about Trump? Yes, we were.
Were we right
about Russia?
I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, yes.
I'm not going to do it.
We were. But it's not just us, though.
Man.
It's not just us, though.
Yo, and it's not a magic formula. It's so much research every week, reading these articles, writing these essays, watching geopolitical trends, at the expense of other shit I could be doing. Lord knows I'd rather be making music, yo. I'm telling you.
Well, we thank you so much for being here to give us the good word and the knowledge, which is what we need. So let's dive into it. As many of as y'all may and certainly aware of, last week Israel hit Iran. Iran struck back. They have been going back and forth now for a few days. I want to show this video real quick, and I'm going to let you. We're just going to watch it, and then I'm just going to give it back to you, and we can kind of discuss what's going on. Because first, I also want to just say too, it's very difficult to cover a war like this. A lot of misinformation out there, and with the advent of AI, it's very difficult to see what's real and what's not. We're doing the best that we can, and I hope that y'all can do the best that you can as well. But this, as you know, every night, basically Tel Aviv has been lit up with some of these missiles hitting. So this is from the Middle East Observer. Massive Iranian bombardment targets the Mossad headquarters, a bus station, and a building in Herzliya in the suburbs of Tel Aviv. Heavy air defense fails to intercept the missiles. And I'm gonna just go ahead and play this for you, and you can just kind of take a listen and see if you're on YouTube. You hear those massive impacts. Those are landing. Those are not being intercepted. Those are hitting the ground. See the enormous plumes of smoke from the impact.
And then you can hear secondary detonations for ordnance or whatever was in those particular places. Those are the smaller booms that you're hearing. The big shock wave is the initial response. Look, so again, like Amin said, I'm gonna do the best I can as far as like giving you what I know, because there's a lot of fucking rumors out there, and that's just good job on both sides, right? Like that's what lets you know it's really game on, is the public relation propaganda on both sides is fucking good, man. Like, one thing I have on pretty high confidence, for the first time ever in a theater of war, an F-35 has been shot down. Now, that's what I have on high confidence. Do I have it on absolute confidence? No. Now, if we talk about further what the rumors are that the Iranians actually recovered one of the pilots. There are more rumors. The rumors are not just that one F-35 has been shot down, but up to 4. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about the most confirmed things that I have. I have, again, very high confidence that an F-35 has been shot out of the sky. That's never happened, and it's an incredibly important change because this is America's preeminent fighter plane. It's supposed to be the air superiority plane, and that's the thing that Americans and the Israelis are supposed to be untouchable at, is aerial war. Okay, so just a more list of what we have. On strong confidence, we have the Mossad headquarters, Unit 8200, which is essentially like their CIA and their NSA rolled into one. Okay. The IDF General Staff Headquarters, Israel's Defense Ministry, Israel's Raphael Weapons Company. I've actually seen that video. Now, again, I don't know. I have a pretty good bullshit filter when it comes to AI. It did not resonate as something untrue. Israel's top biochemical facility, one of their war game simulator, their war technology college has been hit. The Nevatim and the Ramat David Air Base, which again is where the F-35s are kept. Palmykin Air Base, Haifa's top oil refining headquarters. That's what I have on the high confidence Iran has been able to hit. Contrary, on the other side, Israel has hit lots of targets inside of Iran, and it's a long time coming. The strategy of how both of these countries was able to do that is a textbook definition and how they've utilized their power over the past 30 years to shape and build what their military forces look like. Even though both are being hit quite a lot, very different strategies are in play, right? So what you have in Israel right now is Iran utilizing missile technology as essentially rocket artillery. You know what I'm saying? It's not very different from what you would watch in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. What changes is the scale, the amount of kilometers, and also the impact and the warheads are much bigger warheads that Iran is utilizing. And also, they're utilizing up to and including hypersonic missile technology, which is also being augmented by the Ansar Allah movement in Yemen. Now, the $1 million question, how did this happen to Iran? That goes to show the way that the Israelis have used force, right? Backed by the West, backed by Europe, backed by America, backed by NATO. What they're doing is they're flying their quite comprehensive Air Force up to, in most cases, up to the line, right? They're flying, again, like the Russians do. Most of the bombing that happens in Ukraine doesn't happen because, some Su-57 flew over Kyiv and dropped bombs. Man, these things are incredibly powerful, and the guided munitions are incredibly good nowadays. So they're essentially flying up to the Iraqi airspace and doing what they call like a catapult maneuver. Like your plane has the missiles, you get to the line and you go like that, and you launch the missiles up, and then the power of gravity acts as an accelerant, right? So they're not actually even flying into Tehran because that would be a much more dangerous it'd be a more dangerous operation, right? Now, that's not to say that there haven't been some sorties. In fact, there's been quite a lot, but the vast majority of what's happening is what they call standoff munitions fired from not even inside of Iran. Now, when I'm saying, how does that demonstrate Israel's power? Quite simple, right? Israel has spent easily at least the last 40 years preparing to be able to do this, right? Whereas Iran has spent the last 40 years building up their missile technology to be able to do this. Israel has utilized soft and hard power to engineer coups, which allowed them a flight path to get directly to there, right? And that just goes to show you how long this operation has been planned on both sides, right? So you could make an argument going all the way back to 1953, the American and British coup of the democratically elected General Mossadegh, who was, again, the will of the Iranian people. He had the unfortunate belief that Iranian oil should be nationalized, much like Hugo Chavez and Maduro, right? Only thing is they was able to get rid of this guy. And they replaced him with, by all means, one of the most horrendous tyrants of the 20th century, the Shah of Iran, who was so horrible that in 79, there was an Islamic revolution where the people of Iran was like anything to be rid of this Shah. You may have seen his son gooning for a new Iran, talking about, he's going to be the face. This is a dude that's never lived in Iran, not a day in his life. You know what I'm saying? Or at least not since he was a child. He's the son. He's like the Marcos kid. You know what I'm saying? And in the wet dreams of the West, they're going to decapitate the leaders in Iran and put this new guy in, and he's going to serve them faithfully like, I don't know, the King of Jordan, Abdullah, someone who will just do what he's told. But so when we're looking at that, right, how did Israel do it? They first engineered a war where they would be able to take the Golan. That goes all the way back to 67, okay? From there, they've engineered instability in Syria along with the United States and Western partners until Syria fell. That's a little bit more of the flight path. Up to before that, even they'd already toppled Saddam in Iraq. And although the Iraqi government is nominally independent, right, their airspace is still adjudicated by who? The United States. So now there's a clear flight path from Israel all the way from Tel Aviv up until essentially the border of Iran. None of that has been an accident. The West has made sure there would be a way for the Israelis to project their power to any place in the Middle East, regardless as to the destabilization it's caused in these nations, the pain and the suffering that has caused these nations, the literal terrorism that has come from destroying these nations. And in some cases, they've capitalized on that. I mean, we've talked quite a few times about al-Julani, the face of ISIS, now being the president de jure of Syria, right? Who, by the way, gave Israel full rights to utilize Syrian airspace to try to, shoot down any Iranian drones or missiles that may come their path. The only problem is Iran put all their chips in the missiles. You know what I'm saying? And the missiles that they have are much, much faster than anything the Iron Dome has ever had to deal with, than David's arrow, David's sling has ever had to deal with, than Arrow 3 has ever had to deal with, or that. And we've been talking about it for a while. Ansar Allah movement was able to circumvent the Israeli multi-layered air defense. It's only been much, much worse with Iran. And this is what Iran has warned for quite some time.
It really upsets me that we went to war in Iraq with this idea that they had weapons of mass destructions. WMDs was the little term back then. Everyone knew it. Everyone learned it. And we were propagandized to believe this yellow cake is enriched. And, there was all this discussion of how we couldn't let that happen. And then after that kind of fell through, it was, Saddam is a bad person. And it seems like they spent a lot of time, a lot of effort doing what they could. They were sending people we hear from the weapons inspectors, hey, find something. And they're going, guys, there's nothing here. And that was manufactured, the whole, and we remember this going from I'm not here to, start a war, I'm here to prevent one, which was said by Colin Powell, and then later Antony, my friend Tony Blinken.
Yeah.
And you're now seeing the rhetoric from the United States, which is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And this is their little slogan now. It's the new WMDs. It's the new Saddam can't have WMDs. And this is sort of what they're using, I think, now for whatever this casus belli is, or whatever the reason is that they want to possibly join in with Israel. And I know, like, it's so good to get into the weeds with you, but also it's like important to acknowledge the context of this, which is, once again, the United States of America is going to destabilize a country with almost 100 million people.
90 million people.
And again, it will be, Muslims, even though it's a much higher Shia population. But there's also going to be, again, Iranians, a lot of them brown people, like a lot of them, we talk about Iran and Tehran. You're talking about ancient, cities. Again, the United States just defiling with Israel and those things. So here's another big question, and I think I know your answer. Do you believe the United States will involve themselves more heavily here? We've been hearing ideas of more aircraft coming, more refueling stations, things of that nature. Do you see the United States getting involved here in a much higher capacity than they have already been?
So first off, I like the way that you put the question, because higher than they've been, right? We have to already acknowledge the United States is deeply involved in this conflict, and Israel has been a proxy to wage damage to the Middle East, and now specifically BRICS partner Iran, on the behalf of the empire, on behalf of the West, right? All of the refueling that's happening, almost all of the war technology is coming from America. The president can't stop bragging about, Iran's up against it. No one can defeat American military. And then, we already know that's not true from what's happening in Ukraine, right? But so now it's well, let's try someone a little bit weaker, or someone they perceive to be weaker. Will the United States involve themselves more specifically? Absolutely. They're waiting for the right opportunity, whatever the right calculus is, on the Hill, at Camp David, or just the whim of the president. Again, I can't confirm what's real and what's not real, because there's so much propaganda out there. But I saw a wonderful tweet that felt like it could have been real from Ambassador Mike Huckabee. Dear God, that's a terrifying thing to say, as a person that lived in Arkansas for a good long time and understands the danger of this rabid Christian fundamentalist who cannot wait to bring the world to his apocalypse, right? That was just essentially this long tweet, this message to Trump. And it was just just listen to God. Do what God tells. Now, why would you ever say that to a narcissistic, megalomaniacal person? Because God is their ego. The ego is your God. For most people, God is your ego, truthfully. That little voice is telling me that's your fucking ego. That's not to say there isn't a God. That's a whole different concept. But mostly what it is your ego. And so to embrace a man like Trump, to ask him to act on his ego is just not a smart thing. You know what I'm saying? I think violence is inevitable, because violence was the plan the whole time. Everything has been building up to this, right? American people think in these very short-term, 4 years, 8 years, presidential cycles, 2 years, 4 years, congressional cycles, shit like that. But the state has a much longer-term planning, a longer-term memory. And as I said, they've been building to this. I mean, the fact that the entire Iraq-Iran war is another manifestation of this, because what people don't realize is in the Saddam years, and when that happened in the early 80s, the Israelis were financing the Iranians. They were giving them money. We're not talking about the Shah, although they had relations with the Shah as well. I mean the Islamic Republic that they claim to not be able to stand. They were giving them intel. They were giving them weapons to fight against Saddam. Meanwhile, the Americans and the CIA were giving the Iraqis intel and military to fight against Iran, because the point was, the West realized both of these nations would be threats to their nascent Israel. And the best way to hurt them was to make them hurt each other. They flew two proxies at each other and destroyed both nations. Unfortunately, Iraq broke before Iran. And so now they have to finish the job with Iran. And it would have been exactly the opposite. If Iran had won, if Iraq had won over Iran, they'd now be inventing a casus belli to go and defeat Iraq. Whoever won at the end of the day was going to face a West that was going to accuse them of all types of war crimes, all types of violations, because of weapons that they know that these countries had, because they provided them. Like the chemical weapons program of Iraq is undeniable. It's not even a conspiracy theory anymore. It was provided by the Americans, and that's why they knew that they had these things, which they utilized. By the way, Saddam used them against the Persians, the Iranians.
Yeah. I want to show this because, I think it's important to kind of acknowledge that this whole idea of, what Iran, first of all, it's kind of ridiculous to even talk about Iran having a nuclear weapon because it's 70-year-old technology and it's time to acknowledge that people can have this. But if there is some sort of, discussion on if they have one or whatever it may be, I just want to show you this and, show our audience this. This is from Tulsi Gabbard, okay? And this is Tulsi Gabbard is, she's a part of the Trump administration. She's like the intelligence director or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah, the National Information Director. National Director, yeah.
Look it up. Go look at do your research, team. Don't just listen to us. This is from Tulsi Gabbard. The United States intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khomeini has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. This is from Tulsi Gabbard. This is from someone who is in a pretty high position, especially for something like this.
National Director of Intelligence.
And not only that, let's not forget, she also mentioned our buddy Al-Shara, FKA Al-Julani, a.k.a. deputy of ISIS.
Now chopper-in-chief.
Yes, but now he has named himself president. She also acknowledged this as well. And, I think it goes to this conversation of, what you keep mentioning, we keep talking about, the United States is not sort of, reacting to what's going on. They are the puppet master. I don't know if you know this game, Lies of P. I've been playing it. It's a retelling of the Pinocchio story. Very fun. I'm a gamer. And that's just America, the puppet strings. They are causing things to happen. And this is something that doesn't happen unless you have a very long planned out plan. Planned out plan is a bit redundant, but we also saw the video of one of the former intelligence personnel talking about this was something that was already on their list. Other countries that were on those lists, places like Sudan, places like Libya, places like Eritrea. These are places, that the United States has long wanted to destabilize, and Iran is one of those big on the list. And losing Syria to Turkey and, the United States and all the people that were involved, was that hindrance, like you were saying, to Iran, and as well as the northern resistance in Lebanon and in general, because Iran is, a big player in terms of support and things like that. And, I don't want to get too much into that because there's a lot of propaganda out there, but they are a huge, power in the region, regional powers. I want to show you this as well because.
But before we switch on that, I'd like to respond to, I have a controversial hot take. Okay, imagine that. But I've thought about this a while. I don't think there's any doubt in the United States' mind, or for that matter, Israel's mind, that Iran actually doesn't have a nuclear weapon. I think they absolutely know that they don't. And I think that's exactly why they're acting the way they are. Because what we've already demonstrated with Iran's, frankly, superb missile technology is that they have no problems making impacts on Israel whenever they want to. There's no way you'd let your nuclear sites be bombed and you not retaliate with a nuclear strike. And at this point, I wouldn't even see it as a first strike because you're striking nuclear sites and flirting with ecological contamination, the likes of which we haven't seen since Chernobyl. You know, you're talking about, and with the fact that they've hit so many, they're not able to destroy them because they're built in the mountains, right? And then, the big rumor is, oh, the United States will be able to come in and use their Moab, massive ordnance, bombs. And it's like, I don't even think those will work. I mean, the fact of the matter is a mountain is really big. Like, people do not respect the power of nature. I don't think you're going to be able to have a situation like you had with Nasrallah, where like you can just use standoff munitions and just keep bombing the same place until you finally get to a depth where you get to where the leadership is. That's not the way some of these nuclear facilities are 90 meters, carved under the earth, under mountains. Like,
guess what? You're dealing with a nation state now.
A nation state,
this is
a
the
near
difference.
peer adversary for the United States, but more than a match for Israel. More than a match. Because again, you have nothing more than to look at the demographic reality. So just on the Tulsi Gabbard thing, yeah, I believe 100% the United States believes it. I mean, that's why they're doing it. If they had a nuclear missile, the United States would have much more caution. Because again, Iranian has shown with surprising, amazing proficiency, the ability to make an impact on Israel whenever they choose. So if you thought that Iran actually really had a nuclear missile or a nuclear weapon, there's no way you would provoke the response. Because they're not bluffing.
Military operations in North Korea.
In North Korea. It's exactly correct.
And it's just another thing, DPRK. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, that nuclear weapon has been exactly what they wanted it to be, a deterrent.
And leftists really need to come to terms with that too, right? Like, I'm so sorry that the revolution doesn't look the way you thought it would look, like led by some Scandinavian socialist, Greta fucking Thunberg or whatever the fuck. I'm so sorry it doesn't look like that. Mostly it looks like brown people whose praxis may not equal yours, doing the hard work of removing Western and American oppression. All right. So, yeah.
Yeah, we saw the MQ-9 drones being utilized in Los Angeles, tanks here in the United States, in Washington, D.C. And you understand that, again, the armed resistance are the people that are combating these things, the MQ-9 drones, these millions of dollars, pieces of technology. And like you said, the plausible counts of an F-35 downed and, tanks being blown up by, RPGs and things like that by resistance leaders. It's so much about the resistance. And that's why we cover the resistance here, because it is what is the determining factors in these wars. And unfortunately, while I want it to be diplomacy, I do. While I want it to be, negotiations, that's not how the West works. And if you don't want to acknowledge that, then we're just having a silly conversation.
I can't think of anything more dangerous than negotiations and diplomacy with the West, especially over the last 3 years, where they've utilized almost all of these countries. Israel has killed almost everyone they've negotiated with. They've sat down to the table and negotiated with. Those guys get killed. There's rumors that the ex-president of Iran, Ahmadinejad, was killed today. He was one of those negotiators. They tried to kill Professor Morandi while he was on air. He was one of the negotiators of the GCPOA. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the guys that have been negotiators have been historically killed. Most of the guys in Iran that were negotiating with the United States, those were the people that were killed on the first Friday decapitation strike. And even if we want to look at the Russian negotiations, right, for the ceasefire, it's now completely obvious what that was. The West didn't have enough munitions to cover, as we have stated on the show several times, to cover the Ukrainian conflict. And what they knew was a planned operation. They needed a ceasefire in Ukraine so that they would have a 30-day head start to go to war with Iran. Unfortunately, the Russians spoiled all that by not falling for the bullshit and saying, nah, we'd rather get it on the battlefield. And by the way, Ukraine is getting decimated right now. We'll do that on another episode.
Yeah, I'm just going to show this video before I just forget.
Didn't negotiate with.
I'm just going to bring this back. This is, you know, of course, I don't expect anyone to see the sweetest and nicest and kindest things on CNN. But again, I think it's important just for us to acknowledge that these are places like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. These are the hubs for propaganda to to start and to begin. And that's how you hear a lot of these different slogans. And, you know, this is how you can kind of see how they are kind of manufacturing this desire for war, which, again, I don't think they're doing a very good job of in comparison to Iraq, you know, because, again, I think that in a lot of ways, because I don't want to always be doom and gloom here, in a lot of ways, their hand is being forced to go to war with Iran because obviously, you know, we talk about China, you just mentioned Ukraine, and I just want to, you know, acknowledge that at the end of the day, like they're going to do what they're going to do. And this is why I think like the rhetoric is going to turn up. So this is from CNN. And yeah, I'm just going to let it rock.
What I was saying is that we didn't negotiate with evil in World War II. We defeated the Germans. We defeated the Japanese using any means that were necessary. And the same needs to be done in Gaza. Nuking Gaza would be a terrible idea. The fallout would drift into Israel. It would kill the hostages. The point that I was making was,
but you're not worried about it killing,
and say,
for example, women and children in Gaza who, you know, the innocents?
I think war is a messy thing. And I think that when you defeat evil, you have to do what is necessary to do it. Israel cannot live next to a country that a huge percentage of the people wish to destroy it all of the time. They need to do whatever is necessary, and I don't know what those things are, in order to get unconditional surrender in Gaza. And I think that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, so, I mean, as you can see, I think that it just goes to the point of war is a messy thing. You know, the Germans, evil, like these are the things that that most Americans are existing with in their everyday propaganda. And that's I think why you look at another country like Israel and go, how could those people do that? But again, the United States is full of people who are just watching this propaganda every day and, you know, consuming it. Again, that's not even Fox, that's CNN. So you're already seeing that's supposed to be like the in between, right? So again, just the United States, you know, calling war a messy thing and doing those things. I think, again, it is just a manufacturing for the consent of this war and, again, for the death of Iranians, you know, and regime change, whether it's possible or not. Let me get your takes on that and just kind of final
man,
thoughts.
I mean, it's so much. It's so much right there, man. It's so much. Like, I'm blown, right? Because, again, it shows you the difference between the conservative mind in America and the liberal mind. The conservative says, I'm going to kill all them damn brown people. And the liberal is like, wait a second. There's some women and children in the brown people. So all them Palestinian men can die? I mean, like, the whole point is ethnic cleansing. So whether or not you bomb them all to death, right, or you take away all the men that can, I don't know, breed and make more Palestinians, both lead to the same thing, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. One is a little messier than the other, but both lead to literally the same outcome. If you're only worried about the women and the children, right, I mean, that is a violent thing. It assumes that every man in Palestinian is a fighter, and that is a racist assumption, right? That says there are no civilians. And again, that's supposed to be the goody-goodies mind, right? No one would say use that language for Ukraine. And it goes back to, again, one of the things that we've talked about. You know, everyone want to, oh, you're just too damn woke. I'm sorry, man. When you have politicians talking about good and evil, but the evil people are always the brown people, the black people, the Asian people, that is fucking racist. Like, there's no way to look at that. And talking about good and evil is infantile in the world of geopolitics. It is meant to be a very paternalistic way to say, don't think about what happens to these people. Oh, they're orcs. No one cares when the orcs die. Orcs are just bent elves. Elves are beautiful, but all orcs are evil. Like, I'm on 12. Like, this is like, you may as well be talking about Santa Claus. You know what I'm saying? Like, I also want to say nature exists, right? We have the rules of nature. If you take a foreign body and embed it into your body, your immune system is going to react and attack the foreign body there because it recognizes it doesn't belong. We are not talking about a cultural Israel that has existed for 3,000 years and was in the Bible. We're talking about a place that was invented in 1949. The first country to recognize Israel internationally was Russia, the Soviet Union, in 1949, right? I mean, so when you're talking about all of these places are hostile to it, one, it's because the people that lived there were dispossessed, okay? If the United States chose to give Texas to Mexico, there would be Texans in Texas for the next 400 years fighting, if not to return to the United States, to create the Republic of Texas, and they would never recognize that they're part of Mexico, right? Can we give the Middle East the same respect? There was not a country called Israel before 1949. Okay, there were people that lived there. Those people are fighting, not because they hate Jews, but because it's their homes. Their homes, they go back for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. And they're being told they don't have a right to these places. They can't go to these places. They can't visit where your ancestral family lands were. But some guy named Appelstein from fucking Poland can move there right now and have full citizenship in a way that you never could. That is a violent thing, and it will have violent responses. Like, there are so many ways that Israel could have been created in a more intersectional type of way, but it was always going to be conflict. But the way that they did it, it guaranteed conflict. You killed the people that were there or you drove them off. And then you bombed all of the nations. The 6-Day War is important to remember because this is Israel's pattern. Proactive effort. Preeminent action. You attack these nations and then they respond. And that's what they're going to say about this. 50 years from now, Iran preeminent. They were going to, a nuclear attack was imminent. They're going to say this. This is what the history books are going to say. Even though we know Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, Iraq didn't have nuclear weapons, Syria didn't have chemical weapons, they didn't gas their own people, right? But these have become part of these national mythologies that we continue to uncritically regurgitate. And that's what it is. It's not like the world hates Jews. Nobody wants you to come into their house, kick them the fuck out, and shoot their grandma. No one wants that.
Some people do hate Jews. Some people do hate Jews. They're called Banderites. They're called American nationalists.
Right.
These are the people that are anti-Semitic in society, but these are the people that walk hand in hand with the Zionists.
And I shouldn't have to, but I feel compelled to remind everybody here, I am a person that practices Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, have my entire life. Don't go to Israel, wouldn't go to Israel if none of this conflict was happening, because that's not consistent with how I believe Judaism should be practiced. And the vast majority of Jews actually believe this worldwide. That's why we're not in Israel.
The supreme leader of Iran, Khomeini, is older than Israel, by the way. Just wanted to say that. And the last thing before we wrap this up, of course, you guys knew this was going to be a little bit of a longer episode, and obviously we're going to be covering this.
Come on, the streets was waiting.
But it was nice to see Israel have to face some consequences, to have to exist in a world where, they are now in bunkers. They have to face the consequences of not just the Holocaust that they are perpetuating and enacting in Gaza, but just in general, the overall now distaste and distrust and overall hate of Israel for that. And, Iran, again, I don't want to make it seem like we want death and destruction all over. We don't want wars. We are anti-war, but we don't live in a world where that is possible. War is upon you. Whether you risk it or not. And this is something I think Russia knows, North Korea knows, and Iran is knowing, and we're going to see how far they can last and how much they can withstand, because it does look like we are in for another endless war, just like Afghanistan and Iraq. And, you know, the America wants its hegemony back, and they are going to do everything they can. Again, global hegemony is the one ring, and America is Sauron. He is looking for it. He's searching it all for it always. And, you know, again, and I also want to say again, too, like, we're full breathed people. We're artists, we're activists, and we would love to talk more about, you know, social issues and domestic issues. We just had Matt Cedillo on for a fantastic broadcast on the protests in LA and the historical context there. And, you know, unfortunately, the stakes are at its absolute highest all the time here in geopolitics, because America is forcing everyone's hand. And then, like you're mentioning, is always going, you see how they did that? It's like when Draymond Green pushes someone back. You know what I mean? He's going to get the technical, because that's the reaction. The reaction is what gets punished. And I think, you know, again, this is a plan. I don't know if it's going according to plan, but it is a plan.
No way.
And the plan is...
no way.
You know,
no way it's going according to plan.
Try to keep it serious, man.
I'm so sorry.
I do, but it's you know, like I said,
You think you got a little tune-up fight, and you got a little crazy dude in there who tough as hell. He's faster than you think.
well, we've been trying to tell y'all, man, missile technology, drone technology, this is how wars are
The
fought.
West has been surpassed.
I'm sorry. It's not how it was, you know, in Iraq in 1992. That world does not exist. And the United States does not have a military advantage over every country in every place at all times.
At the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We are available everywhere you find podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Watch, or I can't remember, Pocket Podcast, I think. I'm trying to figure out like what our biggest stats are so we can kind of keep pubbing those. You can also check out our Podbean site, innercityleft.com. You can purchase Fables, Foibles, and Other American Sins right behind us. Our music is always available anywhere you find music. Search Lil Tanky or Mean TMK, or hey, you know, both. You can always purchase or stream our work. Let's hope that we have another broadcast. Let's hope that we can keep doing this. And, you know, we don't know. Thank God we have Patreon full of great patrons who support us and show love to us. That means the world to me. And I know it does Moshe and Keita as well. So that's all I have. Any final words or thoughts, wisdom from you, Tanky?
I would like to speak about something I'm seeing on the internet right now. I'm seeing a lot of discourse about, like, why aren't the Democrats pushing back on this war against Iran? You know, why is the only people that's doing it, you know, the Tucker Carlsons and who was
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Good
right,
God,
right. Steve Bannon, right?
The worst people you know.
And again, it's because they understand something that the Democrats and the people that vote for Democrats, right, don't understand. They understand that win or lose versus Iran, it doesn't matter. We're past that. Every day you spend fighting Iran, you're depleting your resources, which are finite. They take time to create the surprise of what each of these things can do. You know, it gets out there. You know, that's the whole open source intelligence movement. You know, when an F-35 gets shot down, it's not just Iran that's going to learn about what happened. Russia's going to learn about what happened. NATO learns about what happened. India learns about what happened. China, right? The reason why you see these Tucker Carlson type dudes all panties in a twist about this is because they realize the only war that matters, that can fully ensure the hegemonic continuation of the United States, is China. And that's where they want the war. But America wants a tune-up. their colony client state is existentially threatened by a nation that won't bow down to their responses. Remember, again, Israel is not even a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and Iran was. And I really see a lot of the global South totally abandoning that framework because they understand it doesn't really work now, especially now that it's come out. Most of those scientists were spies. You're letting spies into your most sensitive nuclear research areas. And at the end of the day, they don't really have your better interest. I really see this being catastrophic to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and also the United Nations. But again, all of it diminishes the West because it shows that the West has to play dirty to win these wars. The fact that this country went there and did everything that the NPT and the International Atomic Energy Agency asked them to do for 30 years, and none of that protected them from any types of attacks, from preeminent attacks from the West, preemptive. It's really damaging, and that makes the world less safe. I think way more countries now that have the ability to do so are definitely going to become more nuclear armed because it serves as a direct warning for what happens if you won't. There's no right way to do this when their plan has been to destroy you all along, and that's been their plan all along.
It's a rule. White people, you get nukes. It's okay. Brown people, no good. No good. Israel, good. Iran, no. This is 70-year-old technology, everyone.
And now it's becoming really obvious that this World War III has begun. We're in less than a low-intensity phase now that we have active conflict in Ukraine and Iran, and it is the rest versus the West. Either you're part of the American sphere, the American empire, or the American empire sees you as an enemy. I think that's what World War III is shaping up to be. And we got to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and anybody kind of letting you know they know what's going to happen or they have a good idea. There are lots of outcomes, but we don't know them. This is why you have to play the games, as they say.
Those people thought that Iran would already be defeated. They thought this would be just like their normal quick wars. And if this turns into a war of attrition, that's just going to be the worst possible scenario for the West.
Yeah, exactly. For Emoji Latenki Summer, I am Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. And I'm going to say this specifically this time. Peace.
Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.